Hello everybody, welcome back to the workshop. So in this video, we're going to be forging a Santa head Christmas ornament, and we sell these over at our website, blacksmithingblanks.com. There'll be a link for that down in the description down below if you're interested in picking these up. So this is actually a 2-piece blank, or 3-piece if you include the rivet for the button nose, but technically it's a 2-piece blank set. So you get not only the mustache, Santa's mustache, but then you get the head and the beard all together in one. So we're going to go ahead and ornament this up and turn it into a little bit of a Santa face and a nice Santa ornament to hang on my Christmas tree this year. And again, if you want to pick yourself up some of these, you can go over to blacksmithingblanks.com and go check them out. So when you receive your blanks, they'll look like this. They'll be kind of rusty. I use secondhand steel or repurposed steel whenever I can to cut the cost and keep the costs down. And you will also notice that it has a bit of dross and or slag on the back side. The slag is easy enough to clean off just by using a hammer and tapping along the edges at a little bit of an angle, and you can get that dross right off of the blank and have that nice and cleaned up and ready to forge. Now, the other way of doing this is to grind everything nice and clean, and so that's what I have already pre-done. So I'll set this off to the side. I've already cleaned everything up with just a flat disc on an angle grinder real quick in preparation to do the rest. So the first thing that I'm going to do on this Santa head is I will actually go ahead and work on basically the nose area and the mustache. The reason why is by the time I spread all this material out, I want to see about where this is going to fit on the Santa face to be sure how I want to texture the beard and everything else. So we're going to start there on the mustache first, and then we will continue on with the back portion. Some tools real quick that you may need for this project. I like using a nice sharper cross peen, little small cross peen hammer to add in the texture of the beard for the individual beard hairs. I also recommend a nice little center punch. So you're just going to need a center punch of some kind. This is optional. It adds a little bit of extra character to the eyeball, but an eye punch can be fun, but not necessary. You can just punch in with some center punches, or with a round punch. 1/4-inch round punch could be nice just for the eyes themselves, but I like using an eyeball punch, so I'll be using that on this one. A curved chisel can add a lot of extra dimension, but it's not necessary. Again, I have this, so I might use that on this project here. And then the main thing that you might need is a slitting chisel. So if you don't have any of the other little specialty tools, you can get this whole thing done with the slitting chisel and a center punch chisel as well. And of course, you need a hammer, whichever is your favorite forging hammer, just in case you need to forge on something. And then again, that sharp crossbeam. So without further ado, let's get this thing hot. And tongs, of course, you need tongs to hold stuff. Let's go ahead and get this mustache hot first, and that'll be the very first thing that we'll work on. Okie doke, I've got this mustache up to heat, and I'm going to use the cross peen of the hammer, starting out at the ends, and I'm just going to work the whiskers back to center. I don't want to cross over the center line with this. I just want to add the whiskers in and get the flare into it without crossing over that center line. Just kind of like a regular mustache might flare out there. So we'll showcase off that. You can see one side to the other. I'm going to brush it real quick. This is probably the most hardest piece to manipulate out of the whole deal, because it's kind of tiny and you can end up losing it in the forge if you're not careful. So there you go. There's one side done. And you can get as creative with this mustache as you like. You may want to add some nicks in it or something like that to kind of create like separate strands where it's not a perfect mustache. All right, now on to the other side. Again, this is the most finicky part. So I'm going to stay off that center line. I want to hammer down hard, nice and hard. Give this mustache some more character. I've decided I want to make my beard points my mustache points just a little bit sharper. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to give some of these a little bit of shape here. Just to point them up a bit more. Make them just a little sharper. Probably come over the horn. Get more radius in there. Again, you do as much or as little of this as you would like to do. This is just my ornament, so it's what I'm going to do. So you can see the difference if you make them a little more pointy. So I'm going to do that to the other side. So as you can see, I made mine kind of pointy. And now I'm just going to give them a little back curl in. I'll heat that up. So now I'll just give that a little back curl in. And that'll complete that side. I'll do the same thing to the other side. Heat it real quick. And again, give it a bit of a back curl right in like so. That looks good. So there you have it. There's the mustache portion. And while it's still a little bit warm, it's nice to add in the center punch mark because you can get them nice and deep while it's still warm. So I'm going to come down just below the line of the top of this nub here. So somewhere in there, I'm going to line that, and that's where I'm going to put a center punch mark. And then that's where we will end up drilling it later on. Just like so. I'll showcase where that hole goes. There we go, just like so. So now we can go ahead and set the mustache off to the side after we look at where it's going to go on the face, so to speak. Where this is actually going to sit on the face. I'm going to have it sit about right there myself. See? Okay, we got that all nice and hot. So again, just kind of keeping and remembering where that was at before. Now I'm going to use a slitting chisel, and I'm going to start at the end of every lobe, and I'm going to kind of bring in and segment out my lobes a little bit. And this is okay to bring these all the way up with a slitting chisel, right up to where the nostrils are going to be. I like giving the beard some segmentation because it's going to give it an interesting look when we're all done. It'll give the beard a flow or a direction. Maybe I'll do one more here, just to start her off here. If you double cut on this, it's okay. You're going to kind of peen some of this up anyhow, so that's all right. So you guys can see like that. Right on again. And if you do this with a curved chisel, it looks even more interesting too. So that's worth notating. You can add some interesting curvatures and lines and swirls. So now, not quite out at the end, I'm just going to add some creases about dead center of my other lines. And this is where we're going to start getting a bit more random with it, because we don't want this all to look the same. We want to add a little bit of randomness to this beard. It's going to make it more believable as a beard. So I'm going to add some other cut lines in here. Yeah, that's going to look pretty good. All right. Let me grab this and brush her real quick. Ah, it fell. So adding a mouth or not adding a mouth is completely up to you. So if you guys can see how those cut lines turned out. And now if we add the mustache to this, we can check to see where we're at. Get this to where I can grip it. Jaboom. Like so. You can see how they originate out of there. I'll give it a quick brush. Just get some of the junk off of it from the forge. And now I'm going to go ahead and add some texture. Now I'm focusing on trying to just add the texture in the lobes and staying off the lines that I chiseled in if I can. Just adding a little bit right around them. If you land down in the lines, it's okay. The point is just to add the beard, some ruffles, and some extra look. You don't have to go super texture heavy on this. You just have to have it textured enough that people see that, okay, hey, that's Santa's beard. As long as you got that going on, you're good to go. And I like to follow the natural grain of the face when I do this. We're starting to get it. It's kind of starting to bow a little bit. I'm going to straighten her up. And brush her out. And now you guys can see how that looks. If we put these two together, we'll get to see how that looks together. Just like so. Alrighty, now I'm going to add my eyeballs. Again, just below the brim of the cap. And I'm going to set them about a ½ inch apart. Hopefully, I set on that nose, grip it all together. You can see how that's looking together. So at the same point, since we're using a center punch, you have to use eyeball punches hot, by the way. You can't use them cold. So I'm going to go ahead and give him some little pupils. Just like so. That way he doesn't look so terrifying. This is kind of a terrifying looking Santa right now without the nose. Trust me, it'll look cuter once he's got the nose on there. And less apocalyptic. All right, so now last but not least, I would do something for this little pom-pom up here off the top of his hat. I generally like mixing textured areas with non-textured. That's a preference. You may want to put all sorts of stuff here, swirls, whatever you like to do. I like there to be areas of texture and non-texture myself. That way you break it up and it doesn't look too monotonous. But I'm going to go ahead and put just a simple line across there. Now if you have that curved chisel, you can actually make this a nice perfect curve really easily with a curved chisel. But you could do the same effect to a degree if you use your hot chisel and just kind of curve it around a bit as you hammer on it. And there we go, we got the top of his cap done. Okie doke. So that basically finishes up the whole face, or the forging portion of this process. What we need to do now is we actually need to drill this. So I'll come back after I have this drilled and ready for assembly work. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to drill right here where his nose is going to end up being. We want to go ahead and clamp these together, run a drill, 1/4-inch drill bit, all the way through the two pieces, and then we will rivet it on the back side with the button nose up front, and then that will be the Santa Claus, if you will. So I'll be back with you after I have these pieces all drilled. Okay, so here we are. I've gotten this hole drilled all the way through here. I simply used 2 pairs of vise grips to hold this, and then I locked the beard in the vise and just drilled through with a hand drill. Now, if you wanted to save this button head rivet, the nose portion, you need to take a little bit of time and make yourself an extra tool. Now, I've got this tool right here. This is a Rivet Bucking Bar. It goes in the hardy hole of the anvil like so, and what it does is it actually supports the rivet head itself. So you can put the rivet head in there and it will protect it with inside of these cavities here. So that is a really nice thing if you're going to make a bunch of these. Now I'm just assuming that most of you don't have that, so we're just going to drop our rivet in and we're going to rivet just flat on the anvil. The problem with doing that is you will flatten the nose out just a little bit. So it's kind of, it's just kind of par for the course there if you don't have the tools. To make this tool, I have all sorts of videos on it on the channel. Just look up the riveting series playlist. If Jessica hears this when she goes to do the final edit on the video or the SEO, I'll have her link that up down in the description down below. But yeah, I have a complete series on making those, and it's really simple. But for this case, we're going to assume that you don't have that, you don't have one of those, and we're just going to rivet this right down on the anvil top. Now, I like to rivet these cold, so that's what I do, because there's no need in heating those up. So once I've got that started, as you can see, it's starting to put a little flat on the end of the nose. That's fine. We'll take this away. Take the vise grips away. The vise grips can end up marring stuff up, so I only like to use those long enough to hold everything in place until I can get things riveted on. Then I like to switch to my actual tongs just to hold it and get a little bit better purchase on it and be able to rock this thing around. So if you rock it from side to side and around, it'll help it from not developing a complete flat all in one spot. Might give the nose just a bit more texture. On the front, and won't look like it's just flat. So there you have it. Now you can also come around on the front and just round that nose up a little bit with a little bit of hammer texture. Take some of that flat out of there just to give it a little bit more of a hand forged look. Like I said, if you want a perfectly clean button nose, then you're going to want to make yourself up that tool. All right. And there we have it, folks. So the last thing to do on these is actually do a little bit of finish work on them. The easiest thing to do is a hot beeswax finish. If you want to use this, if this is being indoors and hung on a Christmas tree, obviously you're going to drill a hole somewhere in the hat to hang it nicely. But you can also get away with just using beeswax on this, and it'll be a really durable finish for many, many years. Now, if you decide you want to brass brush this or add any sort of golden highlights or things like that to any part of this, you are going to want to go ahead. And spray paint it, lacquer it, or something like that. So there you have it. Thanks for watching this long video. I know it's kind of a long-winded one. These two-parter kind of pieces, they take some time to put together. And I didn't get into nearly as much as I would love to do on one of these for myself. I tried to balance it between easy and a little bit more advanced techniques. just in case you have those capabilities. But there you have it. You can pick these up again over at our website, blacksmithingblanks.com, and I sure hope you do. If you don't, at any rate, have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you so much for watching.